So hi everyone, my name is Kasia. I've been using Tableau Public for a couple of years now, and I was thinking that today could be a good opportunity to share with you some of the ideas about embedding dashboards and using URL parameters, as I found them quite useful recently. So let me share my screen and let's get started. All right, so first of all, I want to say that the subject of embedding dashboards and using URL parameters is not something that I came up with. It's actually been around for Tableau for quite some time already. As far as I know, Ben Sullins and Andrew Watson are one of the first people who thoroughly covered that topic. Even I think the first post was from 2012, so it's been a long time since this has been around. However, what I want to cover today is a combination of embedding dashboards and URL parameter actions, which I haven't seen being used that frequently. At least I haven't noticed this, but maybe some other folks have been using this, and I think it's a quite an interesting and useful way of using dashboards overall, and an alternative way of using filtering across multiple dashboards. So that's what embedding dashboards and using URL parameter actions is. It's really about creating web page objects that can be used to embed dashboards within your Tableau dashboards. So in terms of a couple of main steps to follow in here, you first have to create your dashboard that you want to embed within some other dashboards. Then you have to create the main dashboard within which you would create a web page object that would link back to that embedded dashboard. And from there, you can set up parameter actions to capture filter values and pass them on through URL link to another dashboard, so to that embedded dashboard. So it might sound a bit complex at the moment, but as we will go to examples, I think this will be a bit more clear. So just in terms of different ways how you can use this, obviously you can use this with Tableau Public, Tableau Server, Tableau 9. From my experience, this works most seemingly in Tableau Server and Tableau Online. With Tableau Public, there are a couple of caveats and things to keep in mind when you implement this, because of some additional interface issues that you might encounter. But overall, I would say the reasons why you might want to use this would be for a couple of different business scenarios. So in my example that I will cover today, you might come across a situation where you're building dashboard for your business stakeholders, where you're exploring the same data in a variety of different ways. So you will create different dashboards to explore that data. But across each one of these dashboards, you'll still need to present certain top-line KPIs, for example. So, for example, you can have a sales dashboard, one dashboard covering some data around team performance, another one just like regional performance, some other dashboard would explore product level details. But for each one of them, you might still want to present top line numbers of sales and profit ratio, just to give people context as to what the overall performance is. And in this case, you have two two options. You can either build those KPIs on each dashboard separately, but that's not most efficient. Instead, you can build the top line KPIs dashboard just once and embed it wherever it's necessary later on. So you just reuse the exact same dashboard over and over again across multiple other dashboards. And the benefit of this is that if something changes, for example, the branding changes and you need to change colors, you can only do this, you only have to do this once, do those changes once in your top line KPI dashboard, and that will automatically flow to whatever other dashboards you have used that dashboard on. It's also an interesting alternative to swapping views on your dashboard. So some of you might be familiar with a very popular technique of using containers and parameters to swap between sheets on a dashboard. So depending on which value you will select from a parameter, you will display a certain level of granularity, for example, with a swapping of sheets. So this works fine. However, it doesn't really allow you to have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you're actually swapping. You can only swap those sheets, but you cannot swap, for example, graphic elements that you would typically have on a dashboard, like additional filters and some other parameters. I mean, there might be some other ways to workarounds to this. However, it's not easiest to achieve with just swapping sheets. So in this case, using embedded dashboards could be something that could be helpful. This is also another way of filtering data across dashboards without any need for setting up data joins, blendings, and relationships, because you're passing filter information about filters through URLs. So there's literally no connection between dashboards in terms of trying to relate data sources. You just have to make sure that the filters that you're passing through URLs exist in your embedded dashboard. And lastly, this is a good way for using web page objects to display more than one dashboard where you want to maintain interactivity, because if you would just stack them one on another, then obviously you lose that interactivity, and only the topmost dashboard would be interactive. So here's a little chart showing how this actually works. And this is something that we're going to cover today with a live example. So one of the examples that I'm going to go through would be an example of building a dashboard catalog where you can have a set of thumbnails, including including views of your multiple various dashboards, such as, for example, a regional sales dashboard, where people can just scroll through a list and select the dashboard that they want to preview. And within those dashboards, you can have those top-line KPIs as well, so you can kind of see how you can embed dashboards within already embedded dashboards. So that's one thing to keep in mind in here, that you have to be conscious about the database best practices and just trying to make sure that you're not creating this dashboard inception where you're just having way too many dashboards embedded within one another. But this will be a good example where we will be creating a dashboard catalog dashboard, which would be our main dash. And for this example, URL parameters, so filters that you will be passing through a URL won't be needed on the dashboard catalog level, but we will be passing some parameters on the embedded dashboard levels because we will have a set of filters on our main dashboard that we will try to pass to our embedded dashboard. So just as an example, our dashboard catalog will have 3 different dashboards available for a quick preview. And we will also include a section with filters where, for example, we will want to select specific region to use as a filter across all of those previewed dashboards. So that's something that we will get into in a second. Here's a little explanation as to how URL parameter filtering is structured overall. So we always start with the base URL, which would be the URL of the dashboard that you want to embed. And this will be sourced from the share option on the dashboard rather than using a link directly from the browser. So we're going to look into this as well. And once you have that URL, we just have to add the question mark, which indicates the beginning of URL parameters. So beginning of additional criteria that you can use to kind of adjust the view that you will be showing your users. So this show this home equals no part is something that we'll look into in a second as well. But basically this ensures that Tableau interface details are hidden. And after that, you can add additional suffixes, so additional parameters, if you want to filter the data, right? So if you have a dashboard looking at sample superstore, and you only want to show one region, then you can follow that section of the URL with ampersand and a filter name, which in this case would be region equals center. So that means that you don't have to make any changes in the workbook, but you will be able to use that value, region equals central. You will be able to use that value as a filter of your view rather than a filter of a workbook overall. And you can do this for one value, so it can be region equals central. It could be multiple values, such as region equals central, and then comma, which separates values of the same parameter, and you can type in east, for example. You can also do this for multiple filters, so you don't have to select only one attribute to filter on, but you can select multiple. So it could be region equals central, and then, for example, segment equals consumer. So we will go into this in a second in an example. Before I do that, though, I will just cover a couple of limitations. So this is a top-down technique, which means that you can only pass filters from the main dashboard to the embedded dashboard. So this assumes that my filters, let's say for region, for category, for segment, they have to sit within the main dashboard, and I will be passing them to the embedded object, to that embedded dashboard, rather than the other way around. So I won't be able to use filters that I already have included in that embedded dashboard to make some changes, to make some filtering on the main dashboard. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. Another limitation, or maybe like a complication, is that this technique requires a bit of more setup within both the embedded dashboard as well as the main dashboard. So it might be sometimes a bit more time consuming. Again, then about Tableau Public, there are some limitations in terms of removing certain parts of interface. And overall, just the limitation in terms of database best practices, that sometimes this might not be the best technique for database best practices point of view. All right, so now we're going to move into our example. So this will be an example where I've created a dashboard, including some top-line widgets. So this is the dashboard. Doesn't look too fancy at the first glance, nothing special. But as I will click into this object at the top and go to edit, you will see that this is actually a web page object that links to a dashboard. So this section of this dashboard is a dashboard in itself, and it's fully interactive. You can hover over all data points, and it's working perfectly fine. You can see tooltips, and it's very it's also interactive in a way that I can now use other elements on this dashboard that are not within that web page object to kind of change the data that I see here. So if I click on region central, for example, you will find that the number in here updates to reflect activity from central only. Same goes for east now. If I click on east, that's also updates, and I can also use the category here. So I can click on category to update the numbers as well. I can use specific subcategory too to see sales, profit, and so on. So let's dissect this in a second. So how this is really achieved. So if you go to dashboard actions, because this is really where the whole magic lies, you can see that we have a set of parameter actions created in here. And these are very simple parameter actions where I'm just updating parameters that I've created. So for example, a region parameter with a value of region that is selected from each chart. So if I just maybe show the parameter here, it might be easier to understand. So that's the parameter. At the moment, it's blank because no region is selected. Let's say if I click on central now, you can see that the parameter has updated and it now says central. So all I really did in here in this URL is that I passed the value of that parameter as a filter on this section. So this is the URL. I just copied this from Tableau so that it's easier to see. At the very beginning, we have just the link to the dashboard, which includes our KPI numbers. So let me open that now. So that's just the simple view, nothing more. But now you can kind of see that it has those additional interface elements in here. So that's where I use the show this home parameter to remove those elements, to not display them. So you can see that it's all gone now. And this is what I said about Tableau public, not allowing to remove that bottom bit, but you can kind of hide it if you just add like a white bar. Then an interesting part is this next parameter. It's called selected category sales. So let's see what happens. So now if I just paste this in, it's not going to change at all. But what it actually does is that this dashboard, this mini dashboard with top line KPIs, it has been built with a parameter of its own, which has 3 values. The parameter is named selected category, and it has a value of either sales, email, or display. So let's see what happens if I change sales to email. If I change this to email, you can see that the framework is exactly the same, but my metrics have now updated. So all I did is I reused the exactly same framework of showing the header, the top line number, year-over-year percentage, and current year versus previous year charts. So I just swapped between different metrics depending on the parameter value selected. And why this is important is because now you can use those top line KPIs not only on all sales related dashboards, but even on dashboards that explore data around email activity or even like display activity, where in case you want to show your users, for example, volume of impressions, clicks, and CPM from your display ads, for example. So I've selected sales because the dashboard that I built is around sales activity specifically, right? So that's the part that is responsible for choosing the right type of metrics. And then after that, I am passing 3 very similar parameters, as you can see. So all it says is that region has to equal my parameter that I've created in here. So this is the parameter. And I did the same for category and subcategory. So I did this because I don't want these values here that I'm passing here to be static, right? If I would just type in region equals central, that would work as well, but it would always filter the top line section in here to sales profit for central owner, right? So I use parameters because I want this to be dynamic and I want this to be responsive to whatever I select from the list in here. So that's just a very quick example. And now I'm going to show you a slightly different example of using this similar structure. So this is this dashboard catalog that I was talking about before. So in here, we just have kind of like a list of different dashboards to choose from. You can see a description of each dashboard, and you have a button to show the preview of that view here in the bottom section. So I can just kind of scroll through, I can scroll through the list in here. You see I have number 4. I can include as many dashboards as I want. But for now, let's say I only want to see the overview dashboard. So I'm going to click on this one. And you can see that the overview dashboard is displayed in here in the preview. So basically what I did is I've used Sample Superstore dashboards, and I've just published them separately, and I've used them here for these previews. And this is all nice. However, it does not really show the full like the power of this entire setup in here, because the power is really coming from this section in here where we can adjust filters. So what this means is that whatever filters I select from these drop-downs in here will be passed to all of my preview dashboards, right? So let's say, again, I just want to focus on central. So I'm going to select central, hit apply here. And then I'm also going to select consumer from the segment and hit apply again. And I'm going to close it now. So let's see, if I click on the overview dashboard now, let's see what we have here. So the region now says central and west, which is weird because it should only be central. But then the, maybe I have something selected. So let me refresh that. Start from the top. So I'm going to select Central West, hit apply, see if that works. Okay, there we go. So that worked now. So I have Central and West selected in here. And the same will be for all the other dashboards that I have created in here on the list. So if I select shipping dashboard, you can see that the region is also Central and West. And you can do that for all the other filters in here. As long as you select apply, they will all apply to all of your dashboards in here that you have available for a preview, which is quite handy. So it's not to replace those dashboards on their own, because they have their own filters available, so you can still interact with them and add additional filters in here. But just assuming that somebody wants to, maybe someone is a new starter and they want to understand the scope of analytics within the company, this could be a good starting place for them to just apply a couple of those top line filters in there and just preview the data to have just a general idea as to what's going on. But they can obviously open these dashboards and separate windows to explore them thoroughly and in detail later on. But this is just to give them a glimpse into what's going on here. So I thought that it could be a good idea to try to recreate this, but in a very simplified version. So this is where I've created this framework here. It's just a very similar framework to what we've seen before. But then here we will be only using creating a region filter, and we're only select 3 dashboards in here. preview. So let's start with the data that you will need for this project. So I have this saved in here in Google Sheets, only because I don't have Excel on this computer, but obviously you can use your local Excel software. So this is just a list of all the dashboards that I want to preview, along with links to them. And just a quick note about the link. When you want to get the link to the dashboard for this kind of exercise, you have to use this little icon at the very bottom of the dashboard and use the bottom link in here. So don't copy the link from the browser because it's not going to give you the right results. I've also added the description in here, including some formatting so that it looks nicely. So you can see that we have returns in here included in the description. And that's very basic data, as you can see. There is, however, one addition to that that I don't have in the spreadsheet, which is this section. So I created a relationship using just a linking field of one. Doesn't really matter what you input there. Could just say a link or just a blank string. But in here, I've created like a dummy list of all regions and all categories and subcategories. So all the different combinations that are available in there. And the reason for this is that this is what my filter list will be based on. So because we're only using region as a filter today, I don't really need category and subcategory, but I have included this in here just in case I would like to expand the list of filters to include category and subcategory as well. So to begin with, we're going to drag the dashboard name here to columns, and I'm going to select 3 out of all available dashboards, so maybe like overview products. All right, so I have these 3 dashboards in here. I'm going to add description to text and change it to entire view. I will align it to center, middle center, and I will also go to text now and just add like a show button or information in here. So I can just maybe make it slightly bigger and blue. All right, and I'm also going to format the header so that it's slightly bigger. All right, so I can turn off tooltips. I don't need them here. But what I need is to add a link to detail. And this will be used for our URL action to switch between different URLs within the web page object. So I'm going to drag that sheet here into the view, maybe on the top of this, just to hide this for a second, as we don't have that much time for formatting. So I'm just gonna focus on those main items today. So because I'm a bit pedantic, I'm going to make little changes. All right, like so. Okay, so we have a list of our 3 dashboards in here, but when I click on them, nothing happens just yet. And this is because we don't have any web page object available. So this is just a white space. So I'm going to add a web page object, which is currently blank. So again, clicking, nothing happens. So I have to add a dashboard action for URL. So I'm selecting add actions, go to URL action, and I have the sheet 1 selected. I'm going to run this on select, and the URL will be that link that we've added to detail. And the data will be displayed in the web page object. Okay, so let's hit OK, and let's see if that works out. All right, so it does work, but you can already see that there are those additional interface elements visible in here that we might want to hide. So to do that, we're going to edit that action, edit that URL by adding the question mark colon and show this column equals no. This is case sensitive as well, so that's just a FYI. And let's see now. Okay, so now it's hidden. Now we don't have those interface elements visible anymore. So that's working fine. So now the question would be, how do we pass those filter values to these dashboards? So the main principle to keep in mind is that if we go back to this dashboard, you can see that all of the filter in here happens within, like, with a click on different assets in here, right? So it's kind of based on those filter actions that you would typically set up in dashboard actions for filtering, or just like using a sheet for filtering. So that's kind of how it works. It does not directly work in the way that you can have quick filters and just select those values and somehow pass them to your other dashboard. You need to have something to click on to pass that information. And the reason for this is because it is really all based on those parameters that we will set up in here. So like in here, we have region parameter. So whenever I click on something, I am updating a value of that parameter. And the value of that parameter is the dynamically changing in that URL in the end. So we kind of have to trick Tableau to do that. And the way we did this with the dashboard catalog, was with the with the filters pane, where we had that apply button, right? So this is really what it is. It's just a sheet that is being clicked on, and upon that click, we are just updating a value of a parameter. So let's look into that for a second. So now I'm going to open a new sheet and just call it filters. And I am going to add region to a list. And I'm also going to add region to filters. And I also need a parameter. So these are 3 things that I have to set up. So I'm going to add that parameter. It will be a string parameter, and by default it will be blank. So now let's add this sheet here to the top. All right. I'm going to hide title, and I will add our filter, right? And I will also add a parameter. So kind of the end result that we're aiming for is to only have that region list, right? A list of filters, and have an apply button that will update the value of that parameter. So we don't have to display that parameter. I'm going to keep it here just to show you how this works. But like the final result will be without us having this parameter visible. And this little sheet that we have in here will be turned into an apply button. So I know it doesn't look like it for now, but it will be the apply button in the end. So bear with me. All right, so first of all, let's set up a parameter action and see how that works. So if I create a parameter, region, and I want to use the filter section to update the region parameter with the value of region, right? So let's see what happens. So now when I click on east, it updates to east. If I click on south, it updates to south, and so on. But I mean, that's perfectly fine, right? So what I can do is I can update our URL action at the ampersand and type in region equals our parameter, right? So let's see how that works. So now if I click on overview, for example, the region is south, which works as expected, so that's fine. However, at the moment, there is no way to pass multiple values, right? You can only choose one of them. So even though we have all of these regions selected in here, it's only really picking up on the one that we clicked on, right? So that's not ideal. So what we need to do is we have to add a field in here to this sheet that kind of concatenates all of these values, right? So if I just show the filter in here, if I just select east and south, the value that I want to pass would be east, comma, south, right? If I add central, it should be central, comma, east, comma, south, because that will mean that we want to pass all of these three regions into our embedded dashboard. But again, we can just do this by clicking on these values or maybe like selecting all of them. That's not going to work either. So we have to create a table calculation that concatenates those values. So it adds the previous value to the current value, and it just goes on and on until it reaches the end of the list. So I've actually created this calculation in here. Let's have a look in here. So it's not really complicated. It just, what it does is that if the cell is first, so in this case it would be central, then return region name, which would be central, else concatenate the previous value to the current value. So let's bring that into the view and show you what it does. So you can see it starts with central, then it adds east to central, and then it adds south to central and east. If I add west in here, it's going to add west. If I remove central, it's going to remove central, and so on. So that looks great, but what I'm really interested in, I mean, maybe I'm going to keep it this way for now, just to show you what happens now. So when I have all of these values available in here, and if I go to dashboard actions and change that parameter action to update the region parameter with not the value of region, but the value of all selected values, right? So this is the second column in the sheet. So I want to pass this information in here. If I do this, let's see what happens. So if I click on this one, it will still pass east. Then on this one, it's passing east and south. And lastly, this one is passing east, south, and west, which is great. But from the user experience point of view, this is not ideal because we don't want people to guess which cell they have to select. We only want to show them like one cell, only one option to click on. So what we really want to do is we want to filter this list to only include that last row. And to do that, I will create, first of all, I will create a rank function. So I'm going to rank that table calculation. And this will be used for a filter, for a table calculation filter. So if I just change it to discrete, you can see that the value with all the concatenated regions has always a rank of 1. So I can use this calculation to filter for 1. And that way, whatever I select, you see, it's always going to work because of order of operations. It's still looking at all regions, but it's only showing me the most concatenated value, the one that has all regions included in here. So this is actually everything that we need, because now I only have one option available to choose from, which would be kind of relative to whatever I select in here. So if I select east and west, for example, if I click on it, you can see it's going to reflect the same thing as we have selected on the list in here. But just one more step in here would be to kind of hide this from user interface and just replace it with apply button. So I can maybe just move it to text now. But instead of using this as text, I'm going to just type in apply, and I'm going to hide headers for the other two metrics. So we are still carrying that information, but from the user point of view, it just looks like this apply button. So if I add south now and click on it again, you can see that it's still updating. So let me bring that in here. All right, so that will be my filter. And I have that apply button in here. I can remove the parameter now. And let's see what happens now. So I've selected east, south, and west. And let's click on the dashboard now. See, you see, we have east, south, and west selected. And the same will be for the products dashboard, for shipping dashboard. They will all have the exactly same selection. If I remove east and hit apply again, I can go again to the overview dashboard. And it's saying south and west as expected. So yeah, so that's basically the technique. You can do that for the category, for subcategory, for segments, for any filters that you want. Just make sure that the name of the field that you're using in the URL action, so like in here we use region equals, just make sure that this field can be found in your embedded dashboard, right? So if your region field, let's say on the overview dashboard, is actually called REG, let's say, not the full name, then nothing will happen. It's not going to be filtered properly, because you need to make sure that there is a link between this name and your data source within the embedded dashboard. And that also, as a quick note, it also works even if you don't have a region filter on the dashboard. So I can show you this, I think, with the customers dashboard. So if I just switch between these two and select the customers dashboard, you will see that there is no region on a filter shelf, right? It's not there, but you can see that it actually worked, as it's only showing west and south as per our selection. So it works fine in this scenario as well. And that's it in terms of the demo.
Thank you, Kasia, for sharing that. And thank you for sharing the best practices, how you can go ahead and embed a Tableau dashboard in Tableau. And one more thing I wanted to add, congratulations for being selected Tableau ambassador. Can you talk to us about your Tableau journey? How did you get started, and what has been the role of Tableau community?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Tableau journey began, I think, in 2017, so a long time ago. Yes, I was introduced to Tableau at work, and I was really hooked ever since then. I just started kind of publishing some of the work around Iron Viz. I think my first Viz ever was for the Iron Viz Europe entry. So I haven't been publishing that much, but I use Tableau as a really like a creative outlet. I sometimes feel this urge to just kind of viz something, and it really makes me so happy and so inspired, and I really love doing this. So I'm really grateful for being introduced to Tableau and having ability to have that creative outlet. So yeah, it's been amazing, and the community is like also such a huge reason why I have been so hooked on it, and why I'm never bored with it, because it's such an amazing source of inspiration and support as well, because everyone is, it feels like everyone is just cheering you on whatever you do. So it just makes you feel like you want to push forward and do more and more. So with this amazing opportunity for being public ambassador, I'm just really like, this is my resolution to make the most out of it, because it's honestly something that I never believed I could achieve. So yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you, Kasia, and thank you for inspiring, motivating, and encouraging everyone in the community, right? And thank you today to going ahead and covering the topic on how you can go ahead and embed the dashboard in Tableau. Thanks a lot.
Sure, no problem.